At least they know that now it's going to be okay. Catching sunlight, catching rain. Hold on to love, let go of the pain. Into the breeze, now they're free. Back to the earth, finality with ease. Like the days go by, nothing can slow the tide. From the roots a rot has set, but the pink little leaves still have no regret. Falling ill, there's a sickness in the soil. All the riches extracted like oil. So they go back to the earth. It's like they know that it starts and ends with her. Like the days go by, nothing can slow the tide. From the roots a rot has set, but the pink little leaves still have no regret. Like the days go by, nothing can slow the tide. From the roots a rot has set, and the pink little leaves still have no regret. Like the days go by, nothing can slow the tide. From the roots a rot has set, but the pink little leaves still have no regret.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is able to hear me and everyone is able to see me. Just please give me a thumbs up if you're able to, or a bit of an unmute and say, we can see you.
See ya.
There we go. I am heard and I am seen. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Today. My name is Tulu and I am part of the ACA team. Welcome to our very first Back to Basics workshop for the year 2025. I'm hoping that you're joining us from a place of excitement and you are filled, with happiness and just ready to learn as we try and learn together in this space. And of course, I am not alone. I am with Lisa. Lisa, would you like to say hi?
Oh, sorry, I was speaking and I was on mute. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone is good. Yeah. Hi.
And I am also with Solomzi. Solomzi, would you like to say hi to everyone?
Okay, sorry, sorry for the delay. Good afternoon slash evening, everyone. I'm also excited about the session and ready to learn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Solomzi. We also with Sibusiso, but I think they're still in transit. So when they're able to, they'll just pop in the chat and say hi to everyone. Once again, thank you so much for joining us for our Back to Basics workshop. It's been a very long time since we last saw each other, and I think it's been at least a full 3 or 2 months since we last saw each other. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're hoping that you're going to be with us for the rest of the year as we go through topics and try to break them down for our own understanding and see how they can help us in our activism, in our communities, and in the different spaces that we're in. And today, we are going to have a very special guest for you in the middle of the workshop, so stay tuned for that. And we will be discussing conflict, extractivism, and the fight for a just transition. And in doing that, building solidarity with the people of the DRC. So thank you so much for joining us. Lisa, would you like to take us away here?
Sure. Thanks everyone for being here once more. And I'm just going to be going through, like the disclaimer, just noting that the concept or ideas that we are discussing here can be workshopped on their own. And please, 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 we encourage you to do extensive research after the workshop. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Before we begin with, just going through these heavy topics and stuff, I'd like to take a moment to check in with each and every one of you. And the check-in question for today is, if you were a color, based on how you are ending the month, what color would you be? And please feel free to pop your responses on the chat, but also if we do have volunteers, we can do that now. Yes, just by a show of hands, and then we can just take it away from there. Yeah. It can be any color, and it's the first color that comes to your mind. Anyone? Ooh,
I'm trying to
something.
I'm trying to raise my hand, but I'm not
Oh,
finding it.
sorry.
But I think the color that pops to mind when we're ending the month, as much as Feb is a month of love and red would pop up, but I think for me it's a purple color. So it's a color of, I think, in the middle of uncertainty, but also hope. So I'm feeling hopeful about the month of March, but yeah, some uncertainty as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Solomzi. That is, yeah. And anyone else who would like to go next? Any volunteers? I'm seeing on the chat that people are just popping in there. They're putting in their colors over there. I'm seeing a lot of greens. I'm seeing pink. I'm seeing blues. I'm seeing orange. Oh, nice. Lovely stuff. And I'm wearing an orange dress right now. So yeah. Anyone? Okay, cool.
Okay.
Okay. Hi. Hi. Please say your name and then please say the color that you are feeling today.
Hello. My name is Joshua Mwoko from Kisumu. In this month, I will be green. I've been guided with an organization called Eco Action Climate Change Association, which has been carrying out afforestation in the Kisumu region. So I'm happy about it. Bye.
Thank you, Shiva. I hope I said your name correctly. Thanks for that. Anyone the last person who would like to go? Peter, would you like to go? If not, please, can you please keep your mic muted? Thanks. Okay. Ooh, okay, I'm seeing a handful of hands. Okay. Hudson?
Yeah,
Speak? Yes.
that is my name. Hudson Moon.
I hope I said your name correctly.
Yeah, that is my name. Hudson Moon is joining from Malawi. My favorite car, I just choose my favorite car because my phone is colorless. My favorite car is blue, and I feel so excited to be on this.
Excuse me, Hudson. Am I the only one struggling to hear Hudson
Yeah,
a bit?
yeah, I was gonna say that the same thing as well. I'm struggling a little bit. I think you a little bit further away from the mic.
Do you hear me there? I'm audible now for this.
Yeah, it's audible now.
Yeah, so I'm saying my name is Hudson, joining from Malawi.
ulikuwa unafanya nini nani?
Of color. I born colorless. So the favorite my side is the blue, and I'm so excited to be in this team as usual. We enjoyed whatever we are doing here. How people they contribute, how we shared our experience so far. This I just want to express to the team. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Hudson. Thank you so much for that. Peter, can you please kindly turn off your mic? Thank you. Thank you very much. So Iketi's hand. Yeah, we're just gonna have this the last person. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name.
Yes, good afternoon. I am Ekite speaking from Nigeria. For some time now, the temperature in my region was about 44 degrees centigrade, and had been very high. So just within the past 1 week, we've had heavy rainfalls, and these are planting season. So I choose marigold because it keeps pest away from the farm and from the cotton. Thank you very much.
Oh no, sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. We'll keep you guys in our prayers. Okay, thank you so much for sharing the colors that you guys are feeding, and thanks for making sure that this check-in is successful. Can I please go to the next slide? Hello? Thank you. Okay, so before we dive into our topic, I first want to go through our rules of engagement to ensure that our discussion is respectful, inclusive, and productive. So the first rule in our rules of engagement is whenever you want to speak, if you have a question or a contribution, please make sure you raise your hand so that we can note that, and then we can actually give you a chance to speak. And also, when you want to ask another question, please practice the rule of 2. Allow 2 people to speak or contribute before you contribute again. So if I speak and then I want to speak again, let me make room for 2 more people to speak before I actually pose a question. Other than that, I can also share my question on the chat. So please feel free to use your home language. That is, we're hoping that there will be someone who can translate in the room. And then if you know the translation, can you please just drop it in the chat? and yeah, so that we can make sure that this place is inclusive and allows one to be much more comfortable and you can relate to the topic at hand. So you are more than welcome to use the chat for any comments, any questions that you have in the midst of, the discussion. And please, please, please make sure that you do that and that you keep your mics muted when someone else is speaking. Yes. And then language, we're using English. That's the primary language of communicating in the space, but we are very much welcome for a person to use their home language, and obviously preferably using the chat as well. Thank you so much. Yeah. Those. Yeah, just so introducing the topic. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about conflict, extractivism, and the fight for a just transition. And it's under building solidarity with the people of the DRC, the Department of the Republic of Congo. Yeah, and just gonna pass it over to Kulu to give you a little bit of a context, just to paint the picture on what is this topic about, and just to bring you guys back in and to just dive into that slowly but surely, go deep with the topic. Over to you, Kulu.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So as Lisa said, today we will be discussing conflict, extractivism, and the fight for a just transition. And of course, we're doing that in mind, keeping in mind that we're trying to build solidarity with the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So I'm just going to try and give a bit of a context so that you understand why we're holding this workshop and why it's so important, right? So this year, we want to start the year and our series of workshops by looking into conflict, extractivism, and the fight for a just transition. So basically, we will look into what we mean by the term extractivism and how extractivism has created and contributed to conflict and exploitation of both people and planet, with a particular focus to the continent of Africa. So we'll try to also zoom into the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo by interrogating extractivism in the country and how it has fueled the conflict and humanitarian crisis. So as I said, that we have a guest speaker, and that's what our guest speaker will be talking about into our workshop. We'll also then look at how we move into the just transition in a way that is not exploitative to the African continent and its resources, understanding the history of the continent and how the continent has been and continues to be exploited for its resources. And if you'd like a bit more information on that, you can also go back to our YouTube channel and look at some of the workshops that we did around capitalism, some of the workshops that we did around colonization, and so on. And I think it will give great insight into the history of the continent when it comes to its resources and how those resources have been used, and so on. Okay, right. Jumping straight into it. What is extractivism, right? So extractivism can be thought of really as the processes or the ideology or the effects of resource extraction from our earth, right? We know that our continent is very rich in resources. So when we speak of resources, we could be speaking of mineral resources. So things such as cobalt, things such as gold, iron ore, corn, and so on, right? And those are the things that our continent is really rich in. And so when we speak of extractivism as processes or as a process, we're really speaking of it as the way in which resources are extracted from the earth and the manner in which these resources are used by the people over time, right? And we're also speaking to the global north extracting these resources at large scales for the sole purposes of importing them. And typically these resources are exported in their raw form, right? This is before they're going through any kind of processing and they become the items we know and buy from the shops, right? And so when we speak of extractivism as an ideology, on the other hand, we speak of extractivism as an idea, that scholars have come and said, well, this is the kind of thing that extractivism is, right? And it's very much intertwined and connected to the process in which our earth is extracted. And the other part of the definition of what extractivism is the effects of resource extraction. So the way our earth is affected by the way that resources are taken out from the earth, the scale in which those resources are taken out. You'll remember that when I was giving context, I made reference to our workshops around capitalism and so on. And so extractivism is one of those things that is driven by capitalism because it prioritizes making profits and economic growth and economic development over the well-being of communities, people, and ecosystems, because you find that there's a lot of destruction that happens in the resources, in the process of the resources being extracted from the earth and so on. And of course, then this extraction of the resources from the earth really affects marginalized communities disproportionately. So when we say that marginalized communities are affected disproportionately, it means that they're affected greater and also they're affected in ways that are different maybe to other communities that are able to adapt to climate change, to a changing environment, but also to maybe being moved and displaced. They're able to, adapt better there. Or they're even able to contest, such extraction happening in their communities, and they're able to fight because they have the resources to fight, to not be displaced and move from their communities, and so on. And so these kinds of communities, our communities, are often the ones that bear the brunt of the environmental harm that comes with the extracting of our environment. We can imagine, just a couple of months ago, and there is still an ongoing campaign around a cell phone company, cell phone companies constantly, releasing new cell phones and so on. And that speaks to the amount of resources that are unnecessarily being extracted from the earth and being pumped into items that we want to buy and consume as people that we don't even necessarily need. And so that's what overall extractivism speaks to, right? So how does extractivism connect with climate change, right? So like I said, it drives large-scale environmental harm because these resources are extracted from the earth. So the earth is being harmed. Like if you've ever been in a mining community, you would see the type of craters that are left on the ground, right? You would see the impact that has on the environment, such as air pollution, right? You even see the kind of like noise pollution that is there because of the drilling, and so on. So extractivism drives a very large scale environmental harm. And of course, then that means that it affects us because it affects our environment. The other thing that connects extractivism to climate change is the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that come from extracting these resources from the earth. And this is something that we have to reiterate at every point in time. Some of the biggest conversations that happen around climate change and climate justice are tackling the amount of greenhouse gases that are in our atmosphere. And that is as a direct result of the way we are extracting and burning resources from the earth. And so that affects our environment. It causes global warming. And that is why we experience extreme weather patterns where we experience extreme droughts or we experience extreme heat. Like for example, I'm based in Cape Town, and Cape Town, in as much as it can be hot, but it is hotter than normal right now. And that is like a weather pattern that has changed over time, right? And those kinds of things are caused by the greenhouse gases that are emitted into our environment, in our atmosphere. And the other ways that extractivism is connected to climate change is deforestation and loss of biodiversity. I heard when we were doing the check-in that there was someone from, I think, the Kisumu region, and they're part of an organization that is actively engaging in reforestation. So planting trees, building our oxygen reserves and all of that. So what extractivism does is that it contributes to deforestation, because you'll find that forests are cut down in order to make way of maybe cash crops, or like forests are cut down to make way for whatever minerals have been found there, or forests are cut down for the use of the wood that comes from that, particularly wood like timber, right? Where it is extracted from the forest is completely cut down for the use of that timber. And this is where loss of biodiversity also comes in that when we are experiencing these changes in our climate and in our environment, and when ecosystems like forests are being destroyed, that means the animals that were living there are left without a home. And that often then means that they die off. And so we are losing that kind of biodiversity. And as you know, everything on planet Earth is connected, right? As you can see in the picture up there, that everything on planet Earth is connected. So when one biodiversity is lost and one ecosystem is lost, it affects the next and affects the next, right? So that is why it is also important to draw that connection between deforestation and the loss of biodiversity, because it affects our environment, and that in turn affects us and our communities. The other ways that extractivism connects with climate change is because of the soil and water contamination that happens. Once again, if you've seen stories about mining communities, or if you've lived in a mining community, you know the way that the soil can get contaminated, or the water can get contaminated by things like the acid mine drainage. So that is like the acid that comes from the mine shafts and so on, and seeps into the soil and contaminates the waterbed. And these are extremely important resources, water and soil, because people need water in order to live. They need to drink water, because our bodies, I think, are almost, if not more, 70% of water, or something like that, right? So if the water is contaminated, that means people can drink, that means animals cannot drink. If the soil is contaminated, that means the food that comes from that soil cannot be eaten, or you can't grow food at all for that matter. That also means the grass and other greens that grow on that soil cannot be consumed by animals. And if you contaminate the water supply and you contaminate the soil, you are basically condemning a people to hunger, basically. And so that is also why it's really important to draw the connection between extractivism and climate change, and what it does to our environment, how that particularly affects us. And this can be clearly, described and shown in the ways that happens when soil and water are contaminated and people are left without food and animals are dying and so on. And well, I mean, some animals we even eat, so we can't even eat those animals, and it's just all around hunger because the soil and water is contaminated. That also means that the soil gets eroded, so the nutrients of the soil get stripped off, right? Because one, it's because of the chemicals that are coming from the drainage, from the mining. Secondly, it is also from the removal of trees. So that means there's no roots to hold soil together. There's no roots to impart and replenish minerals and water into the soil. So all of these things sort of do go together in a way, and they show you how when our environment is affected, we are also affected as a people, because we live off of our environment, right? And another point which is equally important is exploitation and climate injustice. So with extractivism, again, bringing it back to capitalism, often workers are exploited and paid very little, working at mining plants or working at a plantation or cutting down trees and all of that. They're exploited and paid very little, so little that they can hardly feed themselves and their families. They can hardly afford their own livelihood and upkeep, right? But it is also an exploitation of the resources of the continent, where you find that resources are extracted from the continent, but the continent has very little to show for those resources because there is not much economic or financial gain from that. So there's a lot of exploitation that happens with extractivism. And I think for this point on exploitation, once again, I would implore you to refer back to some of our workshops that we did on capitalism and colonialism so that you can see how deep-seated the exploitation within the capitalist system is in paying workers very little. So exploiting our bodies and our labor, and also exploiting our environment for the resources. And this leads to climate injustice. In the slide before, I mentioned how when our resources are exploited and extracted, and they cause all these kinds of effects that affects people, right, in very bad ways. But people from poorer working class communities, people from the global south, so Black and brown people in the global south, experience the hardest and greatest impact from climate change and global warming. And so that is where you see the climate injustice slowly seeping in, and it lays bare all the other issues that we have as a society, right? And that now people have to scramble for food. And if people have to scramble for food, that means the poorest of the poorest are always affected most adversely. That means people of marginalized genders are also affected adversely. Once again, would like to refer you back to one of our workshops that we did on how climate change disproportionately affects women and young girls, right? Because that means if the water is contaminated, for example, and there's a disease outbreak like cholera, it is usually our mothers that do the care work in the home. So that take care of us, take care of the rest of the family. So that means they have to do much more care work now because children are affected by this disease and they're sick. The rest of the family maybe is also affected by this disease and is also sick. So even when they are sick themselves, they still have to take care of other people. And that is sort of the ills that are laid bare by extractivism when it comes to climate injustice. And that also means global south countries are not able, to protect themselves, also to pick them up from the slumps of, these adverse impacts of climate change and global warming and extractivism, because most often than not, they do not have the financial capacity to adapt to the changes or to deal with the diseases that are occurring. And that leaves them at the mercy of global north countries where they once again have to be asking for aid and so on. So it is basically a full circle type of situation where you're seeing nations at the mercy of other nations simply because those global north nations have now extracted their resources and they have had very little financial gain from that. And on top of that, their resources have been exploited and it has destroyed the environment and has left people in the communities where this extraction is happening, having to fend for themselves, and so on. And so that is how extractivism connects with climate change, but also climate justice. And that is why it is important for us to talk about the amount that is being taken from our planet Earth and being put out in these, small things, well, things that we consider small even, that we consume, right? Okay, up next. How does then extractivism connect with other social justice issues? Because in the past slide, I've really spoken about how it connects with climate change and please mute yourself. In the past slide, I've really spoken about how it connects with climate change and also climate justice, right? But how does it connect to other social justice movements, issues, sorry. So as mentioned before, that there is damage to the land that happens through contamination of water and through contamination of also soil, right? So that means people are now suffering from possibly hunger, but it also means that people are also suffering from water poverty. In some areas, water is already a resource that is so scarce to have access to. And so the damage that can be caused can then pose a greater threat to the already existing but also limited water sources. And this often then forces people to move away from their homes to seek places that have a better, supply of water, that also has better soil, arable soil, arable soil that they can plant on, and so on, right? To make sure that they feed their families, to make sure that their families have water to drink from, but to also make sure that their families are in good health. Right. So now this affects issues of housing, this affects issues of water justice, this affects issues of land justice. Right. And there is also the exhaustion of life-sustaining resources. And at the top of those life-sustaining resources is once again water and food, right? So with extractivism, these life-sustaining resources that are already so limited in our world are being exhausted. So they are being used to a near finish or a near completion. And at times, mining and extracting is prioritized more than the agriculture for people to eat, and sustain themselves, nourish themselves, and so on. And then the other point that I want to come to, that we've also briefly discussed and how it connects to social justice, is the issue of deforestation. Once again, this means that the soil is not does not have any integrity. So the soil integrity is harmed. And so that means possible planting, but like this also means possible mudslides when there are what do you call them, floods. So there's possible mudslides when there are floods, and this means that communities that are closest to where that forest used to be will be affected adversely once again, forcing displacement, forcing people to move away from their communities, from their families, and so on. But also at the same time, claiming lives. I think it is also important that we talk about the ways in which extractivism also take lives in the effects that it has over time, right? And then lastly, it is the violations of rights of the people through displacement, forced labor, and increasing social inequalities. So as mentioned in some of the points before, that often these conditions lead people having to move. And in even more extreme conditions, it is the companies that want to mine and extract from a certain place that they will then force people to move and go place them elsewhere, usually very far away from their families, very far away from their jobs, work, from schools, from clinics and health facilities, and so on. So often people are forced to move. And because they don't have the resources to fight such displacement, they end up falling victim to displacement and being moved to other areas. Another thing is that people end up being forced to labor. So they end up being forced to work for the system of extractivism, right? To find that very young children are forced to labor and work in these mines or in these plantations, and so on, and they work for really little pay. Besides the fact that children are not supposed to be working, they're supposed to be in school and enjoying their, childhood years and so on, but they get forced into labor under very dangerous conditions, and they get paid very little. They get sick, they can possibly die, and so on under these conditions. And also adult people are also forced into labor. to work in these mines, to work in these plantations, also for very little, under very dangerous conditions, where they're also not being looked after, hardly able to ever take a lunch break, hardly able to even be like, oh, can't come into work today, I'm sick, right? But if they do get sick at work, there's also no systems put in place to make sure that they assist them. And the conditions that are being worked under are very dangerous, right? And just to wrap up this section before we move to the next one, extractivism also increases social inequalities. So on top of the social inequalities that already exists, right, extractivism makes that gap even wider, because people, for example, being forced into labor, being paid very little. So that means they're not able to sustain themselves. They are more prone to sickness and so on, right? So these social inequalities that already exist between people who are well off, or like rich people, and poor people are made even worse, right? The poorer keep on getting poorer, and the richer keep on getting richer. And that is where our first half of the workshop is going to take us. So as I said, that we have a very special guest for you today. We are going to now be looking into what is happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and we're going to be specifically looking at the extractivism in the Democratic Republic of Congo and how it has contributed to conflict. Because one of the things that extractivism can drive is a scramble for resources, and that often leads to people being in conflict. That also leads to governments and different groups and companies and so on being in conflict. And often places that have these resources, these big reserves of these resources, often find themselves as a playground for conflict, where people are displaced, people are killed, and that is the situation currently with the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so we're going to have Isaiah Mumbiro from the Congolese Civil Society of South Africa. They are originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they're going to be giving us a bit of a window that we couldn't do any better ourselves, other than, the lived experiences and a person who is from the DR of the Congo. So Isaiah, please introduce yourself and take it away.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this privilege. I don't know if everyone can hear me.
I can hear you perfectly.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I just wanted to check that first. My name is Isaiah Mombilo. I'm the chairperson of the Congolese Civil Society of South Africa, based in Cape Town. This is something very important. I really appreciate this invitation, because we always look for this kind of the platform so that we can also share our narrative, our view, our opinion in the reality happening in Congo, because some of the people always interpret for us, and they speak about us, and they say whatever they think about what happened in Congo. But it's always a good privilege when we get the platform where we can speak ourselves about the journey Congolese people went through in this extractivism started a long time ago in Congo, and also destroy and affect the political system and economy of the country. So may start. I don't know if can check how many minutes I have, because there's a lot to talk. It's better to know the minutes so that I can see where can I not touch more. How many minutes can I have?
You have about 15 minutes, and I hope
Okay,
that's
thank you very
generous
much.
enough. I know it's a lot to
Okay.
get through.
No, I'll try my best. So sometimes I always think that the Congo, it was not really a country where it's supposed to have this case, which happened in so many years. And it's supposed not to have that, because Congo, the map of Congo was not a part which was distributed in the Berlin conference. That was the leftover. It means after all the countries share Africa, the size of Congo was the leftover after sharing. Now, to honor the king of Belgium, that's what they give it to the king of Belgium to say, okay, we appreciate, we respect you, you take the leftover. So all to find out the leftover was where there was the natural resources, the reserve of the entire world, where you can find all the mineral, all type of mineral. So the first discovery of exploitation and also trying to make the European economy to boost around about 19. It was the exploitation of the rubber, where the king supposed to boost the economy of the automobile in Europe. And already that demand of rubber in Congo, still half population of Congolese in that time, they represented 10 million of people of Congo because of the need of rubber to push the automobile industry. That was like the first generation of industrialization. So moving to that, we can see the discovery of so many things starting to be known in Congo, where the land was not really a land where people in the Europe, when they distributed the land of Africa, they neglected, but it became now a very important land where the king supposed to build the land, build the country, and associating with European country like the UK, like America, like Germany, like France, so that they borrow some money so that they can build the country. And that debt creates the involvement of UK, French people, Belgian people, German people, and the US people in Congo. They have an influence over the debt which was given to the king. So that is the first part of the influence of involvement of all the Western power. Now, secondly, the discovery of the uranium caused by the plan of the atomic bomb, which is called the Manhattan Project. The first atomic bomb, which was dropped in Japan and Hiroshima and Nagasaki, was made from the uranium coming from Congo in a mine called Shinkologwe. Already, the expectation of more than 3,000 tons of uranium, which beat that first atomic bomb drop in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, created something which never been fixed, meaning the nuclear people affected with the nuclear, the radioactivity of uranium. And then they say to people, you can work here because of the secrecy of the project called Manhattan Project. They decided to make people to wear the clothes of the protection clothes. You don't wear the clothes of the protection against uranium because they didn't want the Germany and all the Nazis and the Russia to find out about the evil business happening here for exploitation of the uranium, because all over the world people were looking for which country can be the first atomic bomb so that the Second World War II can end. So this is something which started, and then the Congolese people already affected. No one fixed the mess. They produced the more than 3 tons of the demand of the uranium, but no one being assisted since that time up to now. And moving to that, we have the exploitation of copper for the electricity cable, on the evolution of the electricity, and we come to the cobalt, we come to the coltan, we come to the lithium, we come to all the minerals which Congo are in demand, which the world are in demand. As you mentioned, there is cell phone industry. The cell phone industry are the only company who are destroying and making sure there is a political instability in Congo and the economy, so that they can take the cheapest price of everything in Congo, because the mineral of Congo has so much value. You can see the tenacity or the percentage of the uranium of Congo, the one they exported for the uranium, the atomic bomb. It's 67% of the radioactivity. If you look at the South African one, it's 0.02%. And if you look at the Canadian one, it's 0.03%. Look how rich is the uranium of Congo. If you in the cobalt or the coltan, you can see the best quality of the coltan, which to make the device of laptop, cell phone. It's the most richest one and the very good quality in Congo. So all these demands, it causes the exchange of a mineral with the blood of Congolese. And it creates instability, a permanent instability, which you can see it's very impossible for Congo to be stable no matter what. And now we realize that the Western starting using African country to start being the one to trigger the killing system of Congolese people, so that the expectation of the demand of the strategic mineral can be provided for the Western. So this is the reality of Congo. That's why the third policy is, no matter what, you must not let a political system of Congo to be strong. It must be very weak. And the election must not be the election which the people want. And you must make sure the life living condition of people to be always in the lower level, and no progress of Congolese people to participate in any international competition of evolution. So those limitations created a massive killing of Congolese people. And also another logic is that the exploitation of the same mineral, which are used for the strategic as a strategic mineral, are used for the latest technology of a military weapon, was again to provide the latest technology of a military weapon, and that military weapon is being provided for the rebel, the nation. It's not a struggle. It means the general supply the company of a military weapon, and the company of military weapon provide again the weapon for the instability of Congo. And it's gonna be for decades, and it's since a long time. And the last point I wanted to touch on deforestation. The people of Congo, like my province, the province of Equatorial, they don't ever say about their lands, because I come from there. That is my province. They don't ever say about the lands. People coming from far away, cutting trees, and even anyone have a say, and they're going to arrest him. Even claim about his rents, they're going to arrest him and make sure he's not going to talk anymore. And they will make his family to suffer. And the cutting of the trees and the taking over of the land is becoming something where people are complaining there's nowhere they can get support. So this is something very serious. And in the forest of Congo, there is a most important wood, which is the blue woods, the green woods, which is very rich and very expensive. And the people extract these woods, they took the roots, they leave, and they take it and they transport it to another country in the ship. It means the exploitation of the very important valuable woods or tree in the forest of Congo being taken and no one ever say. The villager people don't ever say who will try to kill him. And they kill already a lot. And I have already so many people who are really complaining from the distance. But I'm still trying to find out how can we come up with the rescue of those people who no one can assist them. Even the governor of Congo are weak because the Western power imposing to them the certain thing they can do, certain thing they cannot do, because they make them to be weak already in the election, and also in their mandate, it becomes so impossible for them to move forward. So because of the time, I don't have to say everything, but this is the reality causing the war in Congo and making people to believe that there is no conflict in Congo. But the demand of the mineral or the strategic mineral, it's causing the killing of Congolese people. That's why we say the demands of the mineral of Congo creates a long river of blood of humanity, which never happened before. More than 12 million people, blood are being killed, and they are trying to polish that to say there is a claim of the minority of people of Banyamulenge, which is not the agenda. The agenda is not that. The agenda is the recent land of Congo, the exploitation of the mineral of Congo to be taken by using the agenda which can be by people. So that's why when they talk about Banyamulenge, that is the agenda people are buying. They are selling that so that people believe. But beyond that, there is the true color of the need of the strategic mineral of Congo, so that the economic of certain countries of Africa and the Western can be boosted. I think if there's any question, then we can go to the question if they still have time for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Isaiah. That has been very insightful. And I'm sitting here, making all the connections, but like also seeing some of the reiteration as to what we've been talking about today. So we're going to take questions briefly. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I will note you, and then you can very briefly pose your question. Try to keep it as short as possible. If you have any comments, please pop them in the chat. I am seeing you, Hudson. You can speak.
Thanks so much. To me, I'll start with just to narrate what I heard from our brothers from Malawi military. They went to Congo for peacekeeping, but they're saying Congolese, they blame them that they are not there for peacekeeping, but they are there to help United Nations to take the minerals, the minerals to their homes. So I want just to know which side is right. As we are just hearing Group A, M23, we are hearing about the government itself. So I want just to know which side is right. Is it a scramble for minerals? Is it a scramble for leadership? Which side is right? This is a question that I have, and I feel so confused about the Congo so far. Which side is right? So I want to know that.
Thank you so much, Hudson. Before I come back to you, Isaiah, I saw another hand, but it got lowered. I'm unsure if the person is still willing to ask a question. Alternatively, you can pop it in the chat so long. I think it was Brian.
Yes, I had a question, but I think it goes with the question that have been asked. So I think I want to get more information on the question that have been asked, and then if it's not answered, then I'll pop in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian. You can take it away, Isaiah.
Thank you very much for the privilege, comrades. For the good understanding of the matter of Congo, you may not understand the present incident. You can just go from the past, the talk or the repetition of what's going on. What's happening now is the same thing happened in the time of Mobutu, while Mobutu leaving power and Laurent Desire Kabila come to take power. And after years, he been killed. So that is the same logic. We come in the same circle, meaning the needs of the mineral, it will happen all the time. The advanced choice of the weak leadership, it's being calculated already before anything. It means when come for who can be the president of Congo, that president should be obliged to be bind in certain things before him to be the president, so that the circle of the agenda should be there repeatedly. That's why you see when Laurent Desire Kabila died, the same thing happened because the Rwanda people was in Congo in the time of Laurent Desire Kabila, and then they wanted to take over the power of Congo. Now, Laurent Desire Kabila refused because along the war, when they were doing the rebellion, the agenda behind was to first to defend the refugee of Hutu who ran in Congo. But now it's starting changing. Each and every time they got in the next city, the agenda started changing. And it became like they are supporting Laurent Desire Kabila and they are pushing. And when they get to the city called Kisangani, and the secrets come out. And the right person of Laurent Desire Kabila wanted to expose that. To say they are accompanying us, but when we are in Kinshasa, they're going to take over power. And then when he said that they kill him in Kisangani, and Laurent Desire Kabila knew about that, and he kept quiet. And soon he gets in Congo, in Kinshasa, he say, I'm the president now. And then he say, the Rwanda people, you guys, you done a great job. We agree we're going to pay you. We pay you, you can go back. And they refused to go. They wanted power. They wanted any military position. And from there, I remember very well, we in Kinshasa, we're like 1 month without electricity, without power, without food. We're eating biscuit coming from Congo Brazzaville, and we're eating even the pig food, cooking like a pap. Why? Because the soldier of Rwanda wanted to take over, and they took the dam of Inga to control the electricity. We didn't have electricity. So there was a fight, and the population raised, starting killing the soldier of Rwanda in Kinshasa. The dead body was everywhere, and they had to leave. And after, they try and they kill Laurent Desire Kabila. The same thing repeat again. It means to weaken the power and then to push the rebellion in the name of the Banyamulenge, who are the minority, and then the agenda of taking land and they going to the power is starting. And behind that is always Rwanda. We're pushing that agenda. And then because the calculation happened, as I say, the selection of who can be a president of Congo, it's very smart. They know that this one is a president because he's weak, he can sign this deal, can sign this deal, so that this cannot be touched, cannot be sent. So the true story of Congo is about two phases. It's what the international community and everybody can read. And the second one is the one beyond, which is about the land and the natural resources of Congo. There's no other calculation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Isaiah. I am seeing in the chat there's Becky. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sibs. I see you already attended to that. So please, Becky, drop your question in French in the chat, and then we will attempt to translate. Thank you so much for that. And I think we have whilst we await Becky's question, I think we have two or three more questions. And we'll try to address them very briefly. I know everyone is like very interested in the conversation and is very interested, in the knowing, as I am. But bear in mind, we still do have Isaiah joining us on Wednesday for the dialogue that we will be hosting as a follow-up to this workshop. And so just very briefly, I'm seeing in the chat from Stacy, no, not Stacy, Kayla. Sorry about that. My laptop is running away from me. Oh, there we go. Kayla is saying, hi, everyone, and appreciation for this event. I'm Kayla, originally from Cape Town, but currently in Mexico City. Isaiah, thank you so much for sharing, and it is good to see you. I was wondering, sorry, if you could help explain the role of Rwanda in relation to this extraction, and especially the current situation in the east of the DRC, as you understand it. And then another question that is on the chat, also from Kayla, saying, I would also love to know your thoughts on the role of the African Union and the SADC. So I think that is the Southern African Development Bloc for the southern countries, such as ourselves, South Africa, in the conflict. What are we doing? What are we doing or not doing? And what our governments need to be doing to support the people of the DRC. And I think it would be very unfair. It would be very unfair then, Isaiah, to say, please wrap that up in 3 minutes, but we will try.
Okay. Hello, can I?
Yes, you can.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I just react quickly on the first question. I think the reality of Congo is that Rwanda is a small country. And then I'm just going to give an example for people to understand. Imagine the international community say that Congo is not allowed to manufacture gold. All gold of Congo to be manufactured in Rwanda. But imagine the control of the communication system of Congo all the time was controlled in Rwanda. Imagine the whole official position of the key person in the military force of Congo was Rwandan people. Imagine the system of Congo and then the control of the exploitation of the mineral of Congo in the hand of Rwanda. Imagine Rwanda doesn't have even cotton in its country, become the first country to produce cotton around the world. All those small facts are trying to share tells you that each and every time anything happen in Congo, Rwanda people are. Even you can see all the Rwandese even who are here in Cape Town or in South Africa. They are always close to know each and everything, any movement of what happened in Congo and the who's in power of Congo. And they know the game is if the kind of people who is in power of Congo is this type of the person, they know already what can happen in Rwanda. It means they are economic and the politically position depend on everything in Congo. That's why they cannot let go Congo. And they are empowered by the Western and the European people who signed the contract with them, say that you guys, you are the only one can bring us the mineral of Congo. It means Congolese people must deal with you. And those are the things so that the reality is really very bad for Rwanda. And how this started, the war started only for the demand of the mineral, the need of the strategic mineral, because we are in AI, and the AI are in demand of the strategic mineral which is in Congo. And also the drone, building of a drone is in need of so many minerals are in Congo. And iPhone and also the latest military weapon, it's built with the strategic mineral. who are really in Congo. And some minerals are rare, but you find it only in Congo. So those are the only things making the war to happen. And according to me, we should have a very strong, powerful president and who can stand for Congo. And another question of what is the consequences in future consequences in Africa. You have to know that Congo is the central position of Africa. Whenever goes wrong in Congo, it delay for 2 centuries or even more the progress of Africa. We do know that. So it means the Grand Lake region, it will never be in the good movement in peace or in a good exchange of economic properly and the progress as long the war in Congo to be there. And also the African countries, the SADC cannot be progress, and because the reality of the issue of Congo blocking the progress of Africa from the north to the south. I think I try my best to answer some of the questions.
Thank you so much, Isaiah. You have attempted to get through as much as possible, in the last 5 minutes. So thank you so much for that. I just want us to bear in mind that Isaiah will be joining us again on Wednesday. So we'll note some of these questions and make sure that they are posed on Wednesday. And I'd also like to encourage you that you join us on Wednesday, where the conversation is going to be continuing. Okay. Right. And I also just do want to note and thank you, Brian, for, being very active in the chat and translating for us. Thank you so much for that. It is much appreciated. This is truly a collaborative space, of coming together and trying to make sure we all learn and we all understand. So I'm really, glad to see that show of Ubuntu right now in the chat among us as the participants of this workshop. Once again, thank you so much, Isaiah, for joining us and also for giving these insights in terms of what is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I am very much appreciating the fact that some of the highlights that I was making coming up to this point and your presentation, we're noting some of these things, in how extractivism fuels conflict, but also at the same time, not only fueling conflict, but conflict being the reason for the extraction, and so on. Right now, we are going to be moving to the next part of this conversation that Lisa is going to take us through. We will be moving into the conversation about the just transition in terms of how do we move then from, the point we're at where the continent is being exploited for its resources, that is fueling conflict and so on. So how do we move into, a just transition as an alternative to sort of fight, the extractivism that we are experiencing? Just before I give to Lisa, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. Lisa, you can take it away.
Enough is enough. It's time for us to take action and demand justice for Africa's resources. Thank you so much to our guest Isaiah for shedding light on the urgent issue and for all the questions. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
Yes.
perfectly.
I think
Thank
someone's
you.
mic is on.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going
Okay,
to
so yeah. I think that's why I was kind of hearing myself a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, basically as we move forward, we cannot afford to repeat the mistakes of the past where Africa's resources were plundered and its people and Africa's people were just left with absolutely nothing. Now, moving forward, we'll be speaking further on the just transition, which will be guided by our core question, the one that you can see on the screen. And it reads, how do we avoid Africa being exploited once again for its resources moving into the just transition? I mean, this is not just a question, it's a demand for justice. We are going to take a look at some, key principles for avoiding exploitation and promoting a just transition in Africa. But before we do that, I would like to just give you a little bit of an overall or an overview of what the just transition is. Next slide, Tolu, please.
Are the slides moving on your side, Lisa?
No, they aren't.
Okay. Just give me a moment. Technology is
Right.
beating us for a sec here.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to carry on whilst we're having technical difficulties. So basically, the just transition is like a framework that we use for achieving a sustainable, equitable, and environmentally conscious transformation of our economy and society. So basically, it's like a plan that we have that's going to basically take us through this journey where we transition from, depending so much on fossil fuels to not necessarily like depending on them and to live on renewable energy. So basically it prioritizes human rights, social justice, and environmental sustainability, ensuring that the transition to a low carbon economy benefits all, particularly like vulnerable communities, marginalized communities. It's about ensuring that when we move away from these harmful systems like fossil fuels, we do it in a way that prioritizes people and the planet. So we're moving on to the next slide, please. So we looked into this and we found that, okay, how we can avoid being exploited once again for our resources whilst we're moving into the just energy transition, because like we said, we are very much rich with these resources. We do have everything in our power to make sure that we like this energy transition is happening, this justice energy transition is happening. So sorry, apologies. Yeah, so whilst we have all of that in our power, how do we make sure that we keep that within us? How do we make sure that our resources are not really being overused by, the global north? So to avoid, Africa being exploited once again for its resources, we need to make sure that we prioritize African ownership and control. How are we going to do this? We're going to ensure African governments, communities, and organizations have decision-making power over their natural resources. And number two, we are going to make sure that we empower local communities to make decisions about their natural resources, ensuring that they benefit from sustainable development initiatives. And the third one is that we need to strengthen African institutions and regulatory frameworks to prevent corruption and ensure responsible resource management. And the fourth one, it can be we need to advocate for policies and practices prioritizing African ownership, control, and benefit from natural resources. And we need to safeguard the rights of African communities, including their right to free, prior, and informed consent regarding resource extractions. And if you have, some other principles that you think I might have missed, you could potentially like just use the chat and drop them there, because this is going to help us ensure that the transition serves all of us. So if you have anything that you want to add to the information that I just shared right now, please make sure to drop it in the chat. Can you please move on to the next slide, Sunu? Yeah, and also like within this specific topic that we're on right now, to avoid exploitation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we can basically do these steps and take these actions that I'm going to mention below. And also with this one as well, if you feel like there's something that I have missed, please make sure to drop it on the chat so we can, like also include it in the information sharing as well. So to avoid it in the DRC, we can support Congolese-led organizations and initiatives advocating for a just transition. Number two, we can amplify the voices of local communities affected by the extractivism. And number three, we can advocate for policies and practices that are prioritizing Congolese ownership, control, and benefit from natural resources. And the fourth one, we can collaborate with international allies to hold corporations and governments accountable for exploiting the DRC's resources. So basically, this is really important to ensure a just transition that is for people, that is justice-centered. So basically, if you have any more thoughts and any more ideas as to how we can basically do this transition in a way that's gonna make sure that it's gonna be equitable, it's gonna be accessible for all, how can we ensure that? So if you have any other options, drop them in the chat. And yeah, thank you. That's that for my part. Yes. Next slide, Kulu. Over to you, Kulu. Yes.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I feel very weird having to conclude today's conversation because I'm getting a feeling that it is not concluded. So all I'm going to say is, having taken, from today's conversation, understanding what extractivism is as either a process, an ideology, as effects, as an action, and so on, and how that directly contributes to the social ills that we're experiencing in our community, particularly conflict, particularly the harm to our environment and the harm to ourselves, our food, our water, and all other forms of resources that we should be getting for the nourishment of our bodies and for the nourishment of the earth. I think we should then take that energy into Wednesday. So that's why I'm saying I'm feeling really weird trying to conclude the conversation today, because I feel that it has been very fruitful and it is a conversation that needs to be kept open. It needs to be a conversation that is ongoing outside office room, in our own communities, going out there, as Lisa just mentioned, and supporting, these different kinds of initiatives, and so on, being vocal, also amplifying the voices of people from the DR Congo. I'm also very glad to see that in the chat we have people who are also doing work outside the country, outside the continent. But also in particular, we have people who have joined today who are also doing work in the DRC, and that's very important. And so before we close today's session and maybe we get more information on going forward, we have a feedback form that we would please kindly request that you fill in. We're going to maybe give about 5 minutes for us to fill in the form. I know that we are running out of time, but I felt that the conversation, was very rich and very fruitful and people wanted to engage, and it was important that we allow space for that. So we'll ask that you maybe give us an extra 5 minutes at the top of the hour. And we will end at 5 past. So please kindly check in the chat. You will see the feedback form that you will need to then fill in about today's session, how it went for you, how it flowed. Did you enjoy that? What things didn't you enjoy? What things did you enjoy? And this is for us to better curate these sessions in the future, to make sure that we're able to engage with each other in both this space and the space that we open up for dialogue and more discussion on Wednesday, because this is more of an information sharing space. But the Wednesday one is information sharing, but also opening up space for talking, engaging, and dialoguing together. So please do fill out the form in the chat. It should be dropped in by now. Let me just quickly check for you. Yes, you will see that Lisa has dropped the chat, not the chat, Lisa has dropped the form in the chat. Oh my goodness. So please kindly fill that out. And I will cue some music so long as we give you some time to fill out the form. And then after that, we will then go into data reimbursement and the link and so on. So just give me a moment and I will attempt to open both the form and also the data link, because we've also changed a tiny bit how we how our data form looks. So we also have to go through that. So we'll start with the feedback form, and then after that we will do the data link form. So when you open up the form, this is what you were supposed to be seeing in front of you. And just promptly fill in your first name, your last name, your email address, and answer some of the questions. So question number 1, for example, is how well did you understand the topic that was being discussed before this workshop? And you can rate here, in the thumbs up. 1 thumbs up means not at all, didn't understand it before the workshop. Number 2 means I slightly understood it before the workshop. The 3rd thumbs up means I somewhat understood it. And 4th thumbs up means, well, I understood it well enough. And the 5th thumbs up means I understood it very well. And then you go on to answer, after this workshop, how well do I now understand the topic being discussed? And once again, you have a scale of 1 to 5, from not at all to very well. And then question number 3, based on the topic explored, are you able to relate this to issues impacting your own community? And once again, a scale of 1 to 5. And then you can highlight some of your key, insights from the workshop, your key highlight from the workshop, and so on, and why that has been your key highlight or your key insight from this workshop. And then the 4th question is, I feel better equipped to engage with key role players, whether that be community members or your peers, whose friends and family, policymakers, organizations, schools, and so on the topic that was discussed in this workshop today. And once again, on a scale of 1 to 5. So yeah, a couple of more questions like that you're really just answering and clicking on your scale of 1 to 5. And then others require that you just pop in a bit of a short answer. You also have some that are a drop-down box, and so on. Like for example, this question, if this workshop inspired you to take action in your community, which actions would you most likely take, right? So organize community awareness events, engage with local government, start or join climate initiatives, share knowledge with peers, and so on. You can scroll right there. So that is how the form looks. And once you are done, you can click on submit and your response and feedback will have been recorded.
I have a question kindly. Hello.
Yes, you can pose your question so long as people are filling out their forms.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you, Brian.
Hello.
Brian?
Hello.
Brian, we can hear you.
Okay, 30 more seconds maybe to fill up the form and wrap that up. 30 more seconds. Okay, thank you so much for those who have been able to complete the form. Thank you so much. For those who are still filling in the form, you can continue to do so even after the session. Continue to filling out the feedback form. Now, briefly, before I let you go, we are just also going to quickly take a look at the data reimbursement form. The feedback form has just been sent in again in the chat. The data reimbursement form will also just soon be sent any second now in the chat. Keep an eye for that. Keep an eye out for that. And so long as we are waiting for the data reimbursement form to also be shared in, I am just going to take you through the data reimbursement form and how it is now looking. You will have realized that last year we were doing our data reimbursement
You are
on a
getting well kindly. Can you check on your voice or I don't know
pardon.
your maybe?
Am I audible?
I think there's an issue with the mic or maybe.
I can hear
On
you.
our side, you are fine.
Okay, maybe I think it's a network issue then on your side, Brian. Okay, so when you open up the data form, it should look a little something like this, right? And you should note that your data will be reimbursed within at least 10 working days following the session. So at least give 10 working days from today before you can get your data. So limited data is available. So that means to qualify, you have to at least have attended 70% of the session and actively engaged, whether that be in the chat, in the comms during, unmuting and so on, actively listening and all of that. And please also bear in mind that data is not reimbursed for each session attended, but it is rather reimbursed on a first come, first serve rotational basis. So when we say rotational basis, that means it rotates. If you're claiming today for the Back to Basics workshop, then you should also use the remaining data to join for the what do you call it, for the dialogue on Wednesday. And if you end up not claiming today, then you can definitely claim for the dialogue on Wednesday. And so that's what we mean that it happens, first come, first serve, but on a rotational basis, we're rotating between Back to Basics and the dialogue. And please make sure that you fill out the form within 2 days in order for you to be eligible for the data. So by Wednesday, when you are attending our other session, please make sure that you have filled in the form, it has been submitted and sent. For those who maybe will only be claiming on Wednesday, please make sure when we share the data link on Wednesday, you make sure that by Friday you have requested your data reimbursement because after 2 days, unfortunately, you will no longer be eligible. And this is how the form is supposed to look. So you're supposed to be able to slot in your first name and last name. Please make sure that these names are the ones that are reflected on the Zoom. So the names that you've logged into Zoom with today. So please make sure you check right now that this is the name that I've logged into the Zoom with, and this is going to be the name that I then will use on the form. Please enter your cell phone number with your country code. So I'm in South Africa. I will start with +27 and then enter my cell phone number. And then you can enter in then your internet service provider network. You will put in there, and then you will also slot in the country that you are joining from, or that your network or your SIM card is registered to, right? And then, okay, you don't have to do anything to that. I've already filled in that for you. And then you have to click onto here for the date in which you attended the session, which would be the 24th, right there, and it will automatically fill up the date for you. So that is how you do our new data request form. And yeah, this is something that we, trying to see how it's going to work. It's pretty similar to the other data form we were using on Google Forms. And please just once again, make sure that you fill in the feedback form and you feedback to us and share your feedback so that we can better tailor these sessions to reflect your needs and what you would like to learn about, and so on. And just to close it up, as we are on our way, before you go, if you have any questions about the education program and these workshops, please don't hesitate to email us at education@africanclimatealliance.org. For any general inquiries about the organization and the work of the African Climate Alliance, you can email us at team@africanclimatealliance.org. Alternatively, you can visit us on our website at africanclimatealliance.org in order for you to get access to our resources and to also get access to videos of our previous sessions. I saw people asking, can this session be shared? Please, 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 please. You can visit us on YouTube at African Climate Alliance. There you will find videos for all the Back to Basics workshops we have done. You will find access to all the dialogues that we have done. You will also find other, multimedia resources on our YouTube channel, like the Writing Circle, output, and so on. So please, please, please fill in the data reinvestment form in the chat. Please, please, please fill in the feedback form also in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. You may take some time, 5 minutes or so, as we are closing the session to fill in the form. That is at your discretion. But thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We are hoping to see you on Wednesday, and we're hoping that you are going to invite a friend and they're going to invite a friend, because this has been quite a fruitful conversation and engagement. Once again, thank you so much, Isaiah, for joining us from the Congolese Civil Society of South Africa. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining from all parts of the world, and most importantly, from all parts of the continent. Thank you so much, and enjoy your Monday evening further. Thank you so much. Bye. And I will cue us out with some hibiscus from our very own Sarah Robin.
Pink little leaves falling from the trees, too soon for me to revel in their glory. Back to the earth they start to decay. At least they know that now it's going to be okay. Catching sunlight, catching rain. Hold on to love, let go of the pain. Into the breeze, now they're free. Back to the earth. thickness in the soil, all the riches extracted like oil. So they go back to the earth. It's like they know that it starts and ends with her. Like the days go by, nothing can slow the tide. From the roots a rot has set, but the pink little leaves still have no regret. Like the days go by, nothing can slow the tide. From the roots a rot has set, and the pink little leaves still have no regret. Like the days go by, regret. Nothing can slow the tide. From the roots a rot has set, but the pink little leaves still have no regret. Pink little leaves falling from the trees, too soon for me to revel in their glory. Back to the earth they start to decay,